This story reveals why one critical week in 1914 determined the fate of the entire First World War. The title calls it a miracle, but historical strategists know this victory was born from critical errors. How did a retreating French army seemingly defeated in the battles of the frontiers suddenly achieve this outcome? We will dissect the German strategic blunders, the bold Allied leadership, and the precise moment everything changed. Prepare to rethink the Marne, analyzing it not as pure luck, but as applied strategic calculus under extreme pressure. We begin by analyzing the foundation, the initial German master plan designed to secure a quick knockout blow. The German Chief of Staff crucially revised this plan, abandoning the Netherlands invasion and weakening his main right wing. This revision meant the critical right flank was forced onto a restricted front, slowing the essential sweep through Belgium. We must also consider the French mobilization plan, which focused on aggressive offensives to liberate the lost provinces. These offensive thrusts failed, leading to heavy French losses and forcing a widespread and rapid Allied retreat southward. The French commander-in-chief grossly underestimated the German reserve divisions, assuming they could not hold the line. This misjudgment delayed the realization that German forces were present in far greater strength all along the invasion line. Following the disastrous battles of the frontiers, the Allied armies continued to withdraw, avoiding the powerful German right wing. The German Chief of Staff, encouraged by reports of a defeated enemy, decided to attack aggressively on all fronts simultaneously. However, his operational intelligence was fundamentally flawed, believing the British Expeditionary Force was completely knocked out. The exhaustion of German troops marching over 30 kilometers a day strained their logistics, compounding the critical pressure. The Belgians' destruction of key railway infrastructure severely hampered German supply echelons trying desperately to keep up. Simultaneously, alarming news of Russian advances forced the Chief of Staff to detach 2 corps for the Eastern Front. This detachment created an immediate exploitable weakness, leaving significant gaps that remaining German forces struggled to cover. The crucial first turning point was when the First Army commander ignored the Chief of Staff's orders to face west and screen Paris. The First Army commander believed he had time to envelop the Fifth Army before resuming his protective role covering the flank. By turning recklessly southeast, the commander exposed his right flank to the newly forming French Sixth Army near Paris. On August 29th, the Fifth Army attacked badly, mauling the neighboring German Second Army and forcing a 36-hour pause in the advance. This limited action bought invaluable time for the French commander-in-chief to complete his troop transfer and regrouping maneuvers. The Allied commanders used their interior lines of communication effectively to concentrate forces against the German exterior lines. The British Field Marshal, overly pessimistic about his troops' condition, threatened to withdraw completely toward the Atlantic coast. Only the combined efforts of the French commander-in-chief and the British War Minister persuaded the Field Marshal to commit to the offensive. On September 5th, the newly formed Sixth Army, advancing eastwards, unexpectedly collided with the German First Army's flank guard. This encounter battle, initiated by the German flank guard, triggered the broader Battle of the Orcue and the entire Marne offensive. The German First Army commander instantly reacted to this threat by withdrawing 2 corps from the German Second Army's exposed flank. This tactical decision, protecting his own army, dangerously widened the critical 30-kilometer gap between the German First and Second Armies. This gap, devoid of German infantry troops, would become the focus of the Fifth Army's and the British Expeditionary Force's decisive penetration. The Paris military governor, concerned about the capital's safety, ordered 600 Parisian taxis to rush reinforcements to the front. These taxis of the Marne provided a vital logistical improvisation, supplying 2 regiments to bolster the Sixth Army's threatened flank. The French commander-in-chief's unambiguous order for the general counteroffensive was clear: no failure will be tolerated. A commander must hold his ground and be killed on the spot rather than fall back, emphasizing moral contests over losses. We now turn to the Central Front, where the Ninth Army commander faced the greatest pressure at the Cinquante marshes. The marshes canalized the German advance, restricting the massive force the enemy could bring to bear on specific points. The Ninth Army commander's position deteriorated quickly with his center giving way before powerful German shock attacks. But he was famously defiant, sending his apocryphal report, "My center is giving way. Situation excellent. I am attacking." This reflects the Ninth Army commander's central belief that a battle is only lost when you believe it lost. His refusal to yield drew German forces away from the decisive gap, allowing the Fifth Army to exploit the crisis. A key factor was the unselfish cooperation of the Fifth Army commander, who released his 10th Corps to reinforce the Ninth Army. The fierce defense of the high ground, particularly the chateau at Mont, proved crucial in holding the French line intact. This defense, often reliant on massed French 75mm artillery fire, thwarted the German attempt to rupture the Allied center. The French 75mm field gun, despite limitations, delivered a superior volume of fire compared to its German counterpart. Now, shift focus back to the gap. The Fifth Army and the British Expeditionary Force advanced slowly across the two Morin's rivers. On September 8th, the Fifth Army struck the exposed flank of the German Second Army near Marche-en-Brie, finding the gap. This action immediately rendered the German position at Montmirail untenable, unraveling the entire German line to the north. The Fifth Army commander immediately ordered a vigorous pursuit, recognizing that the enemy was in full panicked retreat. Meanwhile, the British Expeditionary Force pressed forward, crossing the Petit Morin against heavy, determined rearguard resistance. The German First Army commander was still convinced he was winning his local battle against the Sixth Army on the Ourcq. He had grossly underestimated the threat posed by the British Expeditionary Force now crossing the Marne in force to his rear. This intelligence failure, based on the belief the British were defeated, became the ultimate strategic downfall of the German right. The German Chief of Staff, disconnected from the front, sent his head of intelligence, the staff officer, to assess the situation. Arriving at the German Second Army headquarters, the staff officer learned the full extent of the disastrous breach in the line. The Second Army commander's staff confirmed they were out of reserves and that the Fifth Army had successfully penetrated the gap. Faced with the threat of immediate encirclement, the staff officer authorized the Second Army to begin its immediate retreat northward. When the staff officer presented his findings to the First Army commander's staff, they reluctantly agreed to conform and withdraw. The First Army commander's chief of staff, though appalled, recognized that the British crossing the Marne sealed their army's fate. The German chief of staff, upon hearing the report, reportedly expressed relief, confirming the withdrawal was within contingency plans. This decision effectively ended Germany's hope for a quick victory, forcing them into the two-front war they had tried desperately to avoid. The German armies successfully disengaged and retreated to the Aisne River line, where they quickly began to dig in defensively. This led directly to the methodical trench warfare that would define the Western Front for the next 4 years. What were the core lessons? Leadership was pivotal. The French commander-in-chief's unshakable confidence prevented army disintegration. His willingness to sack ineffective leaders, over 50 senior officers were removed, ensured the remaining chain of command was highly capable. Conversely, the German system allowed too much discretion, lacking a strong supreme commander to enforce the overall strategy. The First Army commander's use of initiative ultimately dislocated the entire German operational strategy by exposing his neighbor. The Marne was a victory achieved by exploiting the enemy's logistical and strategic mistakes rather than through decisive maneuver. However, the Allied pursuit was not vigorous enough, allowing the Germans to consolidate their defensive positions quickly. Had the pursuit been more aggressive, the war might have ended quickly, highlighting the challenge of command exhaustion. The impact was profound. France survived, transforming the conflict from a quick campaign into a protracted struggle of industrial attrition. This battle confirmed the value of reconnaissance aircraft in spotting crucial enemy movements and intent despite initial skepticism. Think about the risk. If one key French commander had faltered, the German sweep would have crushed the armies against Paris and the Swiss border. The Marne truly was a moment where strategy overcame operational defeat, saving the French nation through sheer will and intelligence. This is the enduring lesson of the Marne. Even catastrophic plans can be salvaged if strategic clarity meets decisive execution.